One of the things that happens constantly is a lot of our older folks, they don't have important, no offense to them, they don't have importance anywhere else but in the church. So when they don't have any importance anywhere else, they hold on to their position real tight. Because of their title, and we're not gonna let this person be a deacon, that elder board gonna be stuck with 55 and older because they don't want to let go of that title. They're a little fearful of the independence that we may have in our jobs. A lot of our young people, you got young people running Fortune 500 companies, but you can't sit on the church board. So, and that's one of the things that I tell to speak to my adults all the time at our churches is that if you won't use them here in church, the world will find some place to use them.
Like, I knew it, bro. I've been saying this forever, but I just needed a little clarification.
Ouch. Right in the heart with a silver bullet.
Yeah. I think they're plotting on man. Don't bite their feet when they enter the L.A.R. I feel a cold stare.
What's happening, fam? L.A.R. movement still moving. A subscriber died trying. You see the thumbnail. More importantly, you saw the clip. What happened to good leadership or the problems with leadership? Whatever we're going to do with this. I've seen a few things happen over time. What he was talking about was, people who got in a position and that's the only position of quote unquote power they ever had, and they hold on to it for dear life. And they don't have to do a good job with the position. They just want to be there for, the prestige of a position or whatever. And that's a problem. But there's other things that go along with this. One of the biggest problems I see with leadership, these are all big problems, is people aren't ready to be leaders, but they want to be leaders. So people want to be in a position of leadership, but without having the qualities of a leader. Because most of the times when people see themselves in a leadership position, they just want to be the lazy person that takes credit for everything. Usually, the leader knows how to do it all. The leader can tell you what's going on from ground up because the leader's done everything from ground up, been taught everything from ground up, learned everything from ground up. Y'all just want to show up and say, hey, do this, do this, do this. You have no idea of how to how things go and why things go together and why things don't go together. So y'all lazy. And if somebody puts you in an avenue where you got to do this work, you're not going to do it because you're the leader, right? Get somebody else to do it. Well, if somebody else do it, you ain't going to know nothing. And this is what you have. You have a lot of leaders, a lot of people who are in a leadership position who don't know anything at all. And then take it a step further, that's why you don't have as much mentorship. That's one of the reasons, because the people that you consider mentors, they don't know what they're doing. And the people that want to be mentored don't want to listen to people who know what they're doing. So you got a problem. So you're going to ultimately have a problem with leadership because it's like you're not going to follow directions. You're not going to listen. You're not going to, work at the bottom. That's not what you're going to do. There's no humility in leadership. There's no willingness to say, okay, I was up here an hour ago, but let me get down here now. You don't really want to be a leader of everything. You just want to be a leader of the nice air-conditioned room to sit down and say, I'm in charge. Then we got another issue. You got people like the young man in the clip who, you're not a leader at these jobs, you think. You're not a leader. You're just somebody who works under the quote-unquote leadership position. A lot of y'all you know, corporate America messed y'all mind up about leadership. If you sit in front of a computer, and talk to people on the phone and send a few emails, and people got to do what you say, you assume that you're a leader. No, no, you just a master email sender, a master caller. Because if you knew anything about leadership, people respect the position because the position is there. The person is interchangeable. But when you got a leader, people respect the leader more than the position because the leadership is not interchangeable. There's no trust. You trust a person that's a leader because, like, listen, they looking out for me. They looking out for all of us, and they ain't asking us to do nothing crazy. And even when we don't agree with it, it works out right. So you got to have a certain level of people's trust to buy into what you're doing because they're not going to see everything. That's the other thing that, like, a leader has to see everything, as I said earlier. But the people that they lead are not going to see everything. Not when they ask. They be like, hey, y'all need to do this. You're like, why? You don't know what, because this goes with this. But I ain't got time to tell you that this goes with this. I got to tell you, hey, I need you to do this, and then you'll see what I'm talking about when that's finished. Because these people are counting on you to get this done, and those people are counting on y'all to get this done together. So we have a deadline. We have something that needs to be done. And a leader take in a lot of, and I've talked about this before about leadership. A lot of y'all don't know what a leader is like because a lot of y'all want to take credit, but you don't want to take the blame. You're not a leader if you always take credit. You're a leader if you always take the blame. See, that's the difference. Because a lot of y'all don't want to hear it, but if you're actually leading people, they're depending on you to have their back when they do good, in the sense of if they did good, it was them. They did it. They are the ones that made this successful. Them. So they're trusting in you that you're going to give them that opportunity when that moment happens. And then if they do something wrong and it harms you, like, no, that was my fault. I'm a bad leader on that one. I did wrong. I did wrong by them. I told them to do something that wasn't right. They did what I told them to do, and it wasn't right. So they're not responsible. I'm responsible. So a lot of y'all not willing to do that. A lot of y'all willing to push it off on this person, that person, this person, and that person. So that's another thing. And then, and I'm gonna say this, and it might be the most important thing I say. I don't know, but one of the biggest issues with the lack of leadership is you got a lot of Sauls and not a lot of Davids. You know what I'm saying? And what I mean is a biblical sense. Like King Saul was told his time was about to be up, but he didn't know who was coming up next at first. So Saul wanted to, if he had the opportunity, wanted to kill David because he wanted his throne. And some of y'all want y'all throne so bad that y'all will cut down every one of your followers. Everything you've built in your own legacy, you'll ruin it all because you don't want a successor. You want to be able to choose who your successor is. And you can't do that all the time. You want to put your family, your friends in the next position, and they're not built for it. They're not, but somebody else is, and now you want to. We got to cut them off before they get successful. So you get a lot of people who are discontent with people's leadership because they know, oh, you leading us, down downhill. You're leading us and spiraling into what you call it. It's basically spiraling into hell because you can't let go of a position that you feel is your power. So it's like, people don't know when to step away, and you see it in the politics and everything. You see it now, because and I'm gonna say this, and this is where I end. The other thing is leadership nowadays doesn't have consequences. There are no consequences for being a bad leader. You just what they do now is if you're a bad leader, you act like you throw yourself a party for walking out the door, and then somebody else gets in that position and they might get crushed by the weight of all the mess you made. Y'all don't people who are in leadership now don't leave situations better than they left them. They leave them worse than they left them, which means you were horrible. You were never a leader. You were just somebody just sitting there enjoying the fruits of everybody else's labor. But and I'll say this and then I'm done. And the other problem is there's lack of vision and imagination. Y'all are trying to be influencers, but y'all have no vision and no direction and no imagination on how to get a better future out of these situations. Y'all just look at yourselves in this grandiose way, like, oh, I'm going to be in charge and I'm going to look good and this, that, and the third. It's like, you're not a leader. You're just somebody who just, trying to sit on an empty throne. But I'm done. Tell me what you think. Like, share, subscribe. Catch y'all on the next one. Peace.